mama salute. Now we all come together as well. For tomorrow, now we go make salute.
To verify our stories, please check our various social media pages, visit our website on www.ayvnews.com, or send us an email to info@ayvnews.com.
You are watching AYV Television.
Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning, Matthew.
It's a beautiful morning.
Yes, it is. The
And
weather is so dull.
I feel like it's wanted to rain this morning, so I was like, let me rush to the office. So,
You don't get caught up in the rain.
oh yes, yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
that's the same thing. It's actually cool weather outside at the moment.
Mhm. And it's April, and I think we are starting to experience the rain as compared to the past 3 or 4 years, especially within the capital, where we'll not get rains early and they will get enough of rains. But that's something obviously we'll concentrate on, especially from the meteorological department and agency, I beg your pardon, to tell us what we shall be expecting. If the rains are coming earlier, and especially when we shall be going to polls, in June, and you
June.
expect heavy rain in the month of June, and how are we going to manage that situation? And that there's a whole lot to talk about. What if it rains heavy on that day, and how will we manage the vote? We are a small nation, of course, but so there's a whole lot that the weather or the climate can do to us on a single day.
That's true.
But of course, so what has been happening? I'm hearing a lot of concerns from financial institutions, agencies, companies, etc., with regards to the new finance bill enacted by Parliament and awaiting presidential ascension. And there are a host of concerns there with regards to the new tax and tariff, especially on the tourism sector. And I think for an administration who has parried itself to say the new airport will attract tourists, for instance, and also after COVID-19, going back just 2 years, still unstable economy, and then levying a 2% tax already on the GST. There is, so it now means the drinks you are purchasing it's nothing to laugh about. I mean, for my chillers going to the beach area, it now means those drinks you are purchasing at around 25, 30.
Expect an increase.
And the food, so and for tourists coming in, well, that would be something to manage. But if you want to encourage domestic tourism, which of course mostly these businesses along these beaches survive on it's going to be difficult because if I am accessing a particular beachfront area where I used to relax and enjoy my time with my 500 leons, I'll now have to budget way over that. That will discourage me from going to the beach altogether, or I just go take the breeze and then get home.
Yeah, I think it's time we'll just be going for the breeze, or you do like some of us do, you just stay home and just enjoy it from home. Yes, because I mean, the 2% tourism levy is actually something that's going to affect the livelihoods of people as well.
And also on the jobs, because if businesses are not able to meet their financial targets at the end of the day, it means they'll cut down on staff, and the tourism sector is one sector back. There's no formal contract given to most of those who work there, and they can be laid off easily for minimal things. So imagine if a business is going down and they want to cut down on staff, it's as easy as that to lay off staff from work. So I think, but we'll concentrate on those. I think we have those in the conversation this morning.
Yes, please.
Well, of course, good morning to all our viewers and listeners across the globe. This is we welcome you to our number one breakfast show, Wake Up Sierra Leone, on the AYV TV, on Channel 33, and on radio on FM 101.7. We are on DSTV on Channel 399, and today is Thursday, the 6th in the month of April 2023. And we are counting down with barely 73 days to the June 24th multi-tier elections. My name is Bokari Matia.
And I am Elizabeth Momo. You can be part of this 2 hours conversation through our AYV News Facebook page, where you get to share your thoughts and comments with us. Stay with us as we join David Remy Wilson for a new summit.
Every
But before
day,
that, let's go for a short break.
Every day, the world wakes up to you. Millions of people are getting ready for you for shopping, travel expenses, utility bills, trade, and commerce. If we all have wishes, then what is your financial transaction wish?
I'd like to have a choice.
I'd like convenience.
I'd like to pay for goods and services on the go.
I'd like to pay utility bills on the go. Out of credit and data, buy some mobile top-up, still on my phone. Oops, lights out. I'll buy some EPSA, still on my phone.
I like to make payment from my account to another account through my mobile phone.
As a CEO of a company, I would like my staff to receive their salaries through bulk e-payment without the risk of transporting cash.
Rokel Commercial Bank Simcopo does it all.
Rokel Commercial Bank Simcopo. Think of it as
money when you're close to home and when you're away from home for unexpected expenses, and money for those times when cash fails.
If you can dream it, you can become it. If you can imagine it, you can achieve it.
Rokel Commercial Bank Simcopo is all you need.
All right, thank you very much, Elizabeth and Matia. Well, in our top stories this morning, President Julius Maada Bio yesterday at State House received a delegation from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, and the African Union, AU, that are on a fact-finding mission and to guide the level of the country's preparedness for the June 24 multi-tier elections.
Commissioner Ambassador Dr. Abdel Fattah Musa thanked the presidents for the reception and said their visit was in fulfillment of the two main protocols of the Regional Economic Bloc, ECOWAS, and the Continental Union, the AU. He added that the ECOWAS Supplementary Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance and the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance obligates these two bodies to render necessary assistance to member states on the eve of the organization of their elections. He said the team would also engage the different political parties, civil society groups, traditional leaders, and other parties that were part of the electioneering processes. Dr. Musa assured that they will put their report together for the attention of the President of the African Union, who will give assistance where needed. In his brief response, President Bio welcomed the team and informed its members that he once led a process to a democratic rule after 30 years of authoritarian rule, adding that he was also pleased to lead the country again into another democratic election. He made reference to his government's efforts at taking anti-democratic laws and barriers out of the way, including expunging sections of the 1965 Public Order Act that criminalized free speech and abolishing the death penalty, which political opponents feared in the past. He said he has broadened democratic space and urged the election steering committee, which are our international partners, to discuss the rules and agree on them way ahead of time to be able to go into the elections with a clear mind.
All right. Also yesterday, both President Julius Maada Bio and Dr. Kanayu Mkela on their Twitter handle tweeted that both of them had a consultative meeting to see how best they could be able to consolidate the peace, democracy, and national cohesion as the country moved to its June 24 multi-state elections. And after that meeting, a coalition was set up called Progressive Coalition between the NGC party and the ruling Sierra Leone People's Party. We'll definitely update you on the progress with regards to that. But in another story, the Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of Sierra Leone, Professor Fodisa, has revealed that transportation and the unavailability of lecture rooms are some of the key among the major challenges faced by the University of Sierra Leone. They made this revelation during the confinement of degrees, diplomas, and certificates of over 1,800 graduates yesterday at Fabi College.
When I was reappointed as Vice Chancellor and Principal of this university in September last year, I was mandated to guide the university towards the attainment of a world-class research entity that promotes a culture of innovative teaching and learning methods that anchor on an effective quality assurance system. In the fulfillment of that mandate, our activities were hinged on the following. One, to reinvigorate impactful research within the university, to support and invest in technology-driven processes, to strengthen our administrative and financial systems by exploiting alternative income generation and prudent financial management.
It has been a tedious journey, but we thank God that it has finally ended today. The 8 years journey has been very tedious for me, but I give God the glory for all what I've gone through. I want to appreciate my maker.
I am very excited. I'm in the feeling of joy and excitement. It's too much. I can't even express the way I feel right now. All I can say to you is that it's an awesome experience, and I'm really delighted. I'm really happy.
All right, finally, Sierra Leone's alcohol debt, according to 2022 data published by the World Health Organizations, account for about 52 or 0.9% of total debt in the country. The age-adjusted debt rate is 1.31 per 1,000 of the country's population, ranking Sierra Leone 98 in the world. These statistics indicate the harm caused by alcohol among the country's population, hence the need for the national alcohol policy launched by the Ministry of Health together with partners.
This policy here is to reduce the harm from alcohol use. Some of the objectives are: one, we want to ensure that we have effective regulations of production, distribution, and supply of alcohol in Sierra Leone. And we also want to ensure that we have effective regulation in the availability and accessibility of alcohol products. We also want to promote health service and other sectors' response to harmful use of alcohol.
Root is in this business because we use the human rights lens to pursue our work on alcohol control. And for that, we take children as the center for controlling alcohol. And we hope that the implementation of this national policy will help to provide a safe, enabling environment for children to live in, where alcohol will not be a hindrance.
All right, that's all we have in our top stories this morning. Back to Elizabeth and Bokari Matia in our main studios.
Many thanks to you, David Remy Wilson, for bringing us the news summary this morning. But you're still watching Wake Up Sierra Leone on AYV television. We are on channel 33. We're also on DSTV on channel 399. And we shall be bringing you more also on radio. In the show this morning, we shall be discussing the new Finance Act 2023 enacted by Parliament a few days ago, which has brought so many mixed feelings amongst the business people in the country.
And we shall also be evaluating 5 years of basic education under the leadership of President Julius Maada Bio. And also in our discussions this morning, we'll talk about the Child Rights Coalition Sierra Leone on their call on Parliament to pass into law the new Child Rights Bill.
And our quote for today says, the first lesson of economics is scarcity. There's never enough of anything to fully satisfy all those who want it. And the first lesson of politics is to disregard the first lesson of economics. And it comes from Thomas Sowell, an American author, economist, social theorist, and political commentator. We'll now get a quick word from our sponsors, Rokel Commercial Bank, and then we'll be right back.
Every day, the world wakes up to you. Millions of people are getting ready for you for shopping, travel expenses, utility bills, trade, and commerce. If we all have wishes, then what is your financial transaction wish?
I'd like to have a choice.
I'd like convenience.
I'd like to pay for goods and services on the go.
I'd like to pay utility bills on the go, out of credit and data, buy some mobile top-up, still on my phone. Oops, lights out. I'll buy some EPSA, still on my phone.
I like to make payment from my account to another account through my mobile phone.
As a chef for company, I would like my staff to receive their salaries through bulk e-payment without the risk of transporting cash.
Rokel Commercial Bank Simcopo does it all.
Rokel Commercial Bank Simcopo. Think of it as
Money when you're close to home and when you're away from home for unexpected expenses, and money for those times when cash fails.
If you can dream it, you can become it. If you can imagine it, you can achieve it.
Rokel Commercial Bank Simcopo is all you need.
We are now days away from Sierra Leone's dates with destiny, the June 24th general election. In this defining moment in the history of Sierra Leone, here at AYV, we recognize the mantle thrust upon us to be the voice of the nation fully.
We take our task to ensure fair coverage seriously. We intend to honor our pledge to you, to be your home of all things credible, factual, and all times balanced news. Totally. This is our commitment to you. We have witnessed non-stop hours of groundbreaking broadcast in an effort that saw AYV rolled out 8 studios across Sierra Leone at Star Hill, Aberdeen, Makeni, Kenema, Bow, and London, with almost 3 kilometers of coaxial cable laid connecting 4 ground teams that consume almost 100 liters of coffee from Chef Teina. The most important number is 2. Out of dozens of aspirants, only 2 men have emerged from the conventions in February as flag bearers of the APC and SLPP, retired Brigadier Julius Maada Bio and Dr. Samuel Matthew Wilson Tamara.
So far, we have witnessed a lot of intrigues. Maybe this is the beginning. Defections and realignments have been plenty. We don't know if there's more to come.
The only thing you can guarantee right now is that your home of credible, factual, and balanced news and analysis, AYV Media Empire, will bring you every twist and turn of this amazing race in full color and in high definition.
We shall have a comprehensive look at the developments around the election as we count down to Sierra Leone's date with destiny.
Women clamored and got a law that provides 30% minimum quota in governance. Will that be achieved this June?
Well, one thing is clear. The nation has begun its conversation that will culminate a date with its destiny on the 24th of June. How much will change by then? And what shifts within the political landscape are we going to see?
All right, welcome back. This is Wake Up Sierra Leone and AYV. We're live on our Facebook page, AYV News. Don't forget to send your comments.
Well, in our first segment this morning, we're going to evaluate 5 years of the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, MBSSE. The ministry was set up to develop policy guidelines for the implementation of all learning and teaching related activities in pre-primary, junior secondary and senior secondary levels of education in Sierra Leone, and also to enhance and strengthen inclusive and collaborative policy-making process. However, the ministry, since inception, has done so many reforms. So this morning, to evaluate 5 years of the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, Augustine Bami Anthony, Communications Specialist, Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, Alfonso Mangi, National Coordinator, Civil Rights Coalition, is here with us. And also in our studio too, we have Ramatu Jallo from Child Rights Coalition, Sierra Leone, and she's here to talk on that call to Parliament to pass into law the Child Rights Bill. Gentlemen and lady, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Good morning.
Augustine, I would have loved to start with you by default to give us all the goodies the ministry has done in the past 5 years. And there has been several pronouncements by President Julius Maada Bio as the spearhead of the free quality education program. Since its inception, we've seen 2 ministers as heads, and David Moynihan Asenge, Free Saint Doctor, was granted a prestigious award for his role in education across Africa as the best minister in the world. But has that translated into the very reality over the 5 years of what the president envisioned of how a free quality education program would look like?
Thank you very much, Mr. Matea. I love the knowledge you already possess in education because the background is solid. For the very reason, I am going to take a 3-pronged approach to providing answers to your questions. I would love to take a general look at the commitment of the president when he declared free quality school education program in this country in 2018. And of course, we would love to look at the impact, the role of the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education specifically. And of course, you have to look at the development of policies, the curriculum. I would love to also major on the specific and I want to call it the prestigious role of the leadership of the minister, Dr. David Moynihan Asenge, because international relations teaches us that the character of a leader translates into the institution. If you have a combative leader, that nation is bound to be facing war with other countries. So we have to look at David Senge in this contribution. But let's take at the general commitment of President Julius Maada Bio. I don't want to go into what he said. I want to go into the impact. His pay fees All government and government-assisted schools, pupils attending there are not paying school fees. He is paying school fees by means of subsidy, school subsidy. That means he has paid over 500 billion leones within the period of 5 years. He is paying examination fees for public examination fees in particular. NPSE, Becker, and WASC. I will explain that as well. NPSE and Becker, he is paying for both public and private institutions, public and private schools. For WASC, he is paying for government and government-assisted schools only. Of course, we will talk about the exponential rise in number of candidates in the WASC examination from 50,000 in 2017-18 to now 228,000 this year, as we speak. He has provided teaching learning materials for all government and government-assisted schools, as he promised. He has provided textbooks in the core subject areas of mathematics, social studies, language arts, and integrated science for the JSS. And for the senior school, he has provided the English language and mathematics. He said he will expand school feeding program. Yes, he has done that. He has expanded school feeding program significantly from 5 districts to 15 districts, from 100,000 beneficiaries to over 600,000 beneficiaries over the period of 5 years. He said he will functionalize the Teaching Service Commission. Go to the Teaching Service Commission now. A teacher is retiring today. His benefit is coming in today because they are on top of their games in recruitment, in promotions, in demotions, in down to retirement. Sorry. He said he was going to provide school buses. You could see the testimony on the street that he has provided over the period of 5 years, 50 buses that are then distributed to the districts across the country. And a lot of things he said he will have to make the teaching profession lucrative. Over the period of 4 years or 5 years now, he has increased 3 times on the salary of teachers. We understand that it is small, but effort has been made, deliberate effort has been made to improve on the teacher salary. I want to go specific so we don't waste much time. At the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education over the period of 5 years, the ministry is the vehicle to really put into reality these commitments of the president. And the ministry, I want to make it possessive this time, we have developed a lot of policies that are suitable to transforming education in this country. Of course, one of which is the radical inclusion policy that has brought on board all kinds of category of learners to an equal platform. I don't want to go into that as much. We have developed the early childhood development policy in the situation where before now only the rich had the opportunity of sending their kids to preschool, the kindergarten. Some of us who came from very humble backgrounds never had the opportunity to do so. We have developed the school feeding policy. We have developed school catchment area policy. That's situation where politicians will just come from the blue and construct schools in communities without furniture, without teachers, and that building will be left unattended. We have also ensured that there is not a policy to determine how you construct schools. Most importantly, we have taken the risk. I call it risk because some nations that have tried to do that collapsed. We have taken the risk as a nation to review the entire curriculum of our educational system, down from the pre-primary to the basic education to the senior secondary education, to the point there where in the next coming academic year, we'll be having 5 streams instead of the conventional 3 streams of art, science, and commercial. We'll be having now sciences and technology, literature and English. We'll be having social and cultural studies. We're having mathematics and numeracy, and of course, economics and entrepreneurship. 5 streams that we'll be having come September. A lot of things we have expanded exponentially on the coverage of education already. In as much as we want to have radical inclusion at the play, we want to ensure that kids at the far-to-reach areas are also on board in the teaching and learning process. Given that we realize that we do not have enough teachers, qualified teachers across the country to really provide the kind of fit for purpose type of education. Yes, we have recruited over 12,000 qualified teachers, but we need more. A lot of things I'm happy to share with you today. One thing I want to make clarifications on before I go to the specific of Dr. David Mono Senge. The president mentioned in his proclamation in 2018 that he was going to have schools built in all chiefdoms, secondary schools, in all chiefdoms across the country. A lot of people say he didn't do it. I want to let viewers understand this very clearly today. That was the stand of His Excellency, and that was what he communicated to the ministry. But when we started rolling out the free quality school education program, we realized that one, there were enough schools that were in existence but not approved. In these very chiefdoms, the president wanted to construct new schools. So what the ministry did over the period of just 2 years, the ministry approved over 4,000 schools to operate. And these schools were then given subsidies just to function. So what the government now is doing is to build isolated schools, over 10,000 classroom blocks across the areas that there are no schools. That is what the government is doing. That is, you can understand the value for money. You cannot be building schools where there are schools already. And now I'll have to summarize. I know you value time here at the AYV. I want to go into specifics of personal contributions of the Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education. We all know he is the Chief Innovation Officer of his country. So that blend, that marriage between education and DSTI is giving birth to beautiful children. One of which is the introduction of technology into the education sector. Now we see the Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education using mobile technology to not just solve educational problems, but economic problems too. We are all aware of the very fact that before now, when public examination results are released, you have to see this scramble around Freetown and even the provinces for scratch card. The price of scratch card will have to increase uncontrollably, given the demand. From 40,000 units, then it will rise to 150,000 as the case, as per location. Because these agents will come to Freetown from Kailan, from Falaba to purchase, and they will have to sell their prices at their own liberty. So that has been taken off. That was just the economic aspect. There was a huge social aspect to that. Even when you have bought your cards, your scratch card, you have to go join the queue at the cafes. You see queues of hundreds or thousands of candidates trying to scratch or check for their result. They'll be there for the rest of the day sweating. That is even a social problem. He has said no. Now the introduction of a short code, you have to send the word result to 468. You'll be seated at the comfort of your home, even with the button phone, and the result is given you easily. That is one big contribution he did as a minister. He realized that most of our schools, especially the NPSC level, we are not doing well in public exams. You see 78% passes, for example, at the NPSC, but we see over 400 schools having 0 pupils passing the exams. That was a very serious concern. He realized that this was because they had no opportunity to lay hands on past papers. Even the teachers that will prepare these kids will not have the opportunity to lay hands on past papers. It was just all about presuming that this was going to happen. The kids had the opportunity only to see past papers in the examination hall. So that was the very reason they were failing. He said, I am going to provide past papers on the internet. He worked with UNICEF and of course Microsoft, and introduced the Learning Passport, where all past papers are uploaded from 2010, also with the opportunity of pretest. He didn't stop there. We also have seen over the period that the office of the minister and that of the public is being breached. Now you could see a primary school kid walking into the office of the minister. That in itself is a very big achievement. But before I go, I will have to talk about his international roles. Mm-hmm. His chair is a co-chair of the UNESCO high-level steering committee to education. We also saw his major role in the Transforming Education Summit, where the president, His Excellency Brigadier Julius Maada Bio, was made co-chair, at New York. We also heard of the Deputy Secretary General calling him, referring to our minister as the modern minister of all times of education. Of recent times, as I conclude, at Dubai, the government sat to say, we need to recognize this incredible effort of this young man. And he was proclaimed, I want to use that word, he was proclaimed best minister of the world of education. That in itself is a blessing to Sierra Leone. How? Now, let us bridge that gap between us and our neighboring countries. Countries we thought we are too high of us, like Nigeria, Ghana, that now we see ourselves as compatriots. When you travel outside Sierra Leone to European countries and say you are from Sierra Leone, they will say, oh, the land of education. That in itself is a whole blessing. If you want to apply for international scholarship, now the country is recognized as a country of education. If you want to go for international jobs as a graduate, you now can compete fairly because Sierra Leone is recognized as a country on the land of education.
Right.
So I know we'll have to come to talk a lot about that, but I have to pause a little bit to give you a chance.
Yes, quickly before Elizabeth comes in, Alfonso, Augustine has paid attention to three key areas. You know, what the president pronounced, the policies of the ministry in actualizing those pronunciations made by the president, and also the efforts of the minister himself into actualizing or shaping how education is now. Do you think this has reflected into the general output of education in the past 5 years?
Thank you very much. Okay. So if you want to know whether it has reflected, you have to look at the four guiding principles of the free quality education. In looking at the four guiding principles, then you know the challenges we have in the sector, because education is a sector. Despite to have the Ministry of Higher and Technical Education and the Ministry of Basic Education. But when you look at the education sector plan that spans from 2022 to 2026, which theme is to transforming learning for all with 9 key objectives, education is a sector. Now let's look at the four guiding principles when we want to assess the free quality education. The first one is universal access. It deals with the GER, gross enrollment rates. You take in 2018 as a baseline. From 2018, we have less than 1.7 million kids in school. 2023, we have now over 3.1 million kids in school. So that's for what we say access to education, but not without challenges. We'll come to those challenges. The second one being comprehensive safety. Kids must learn in an environment that is conducive. And what are these? Schools must have wash facility, fence, the school bus service, the school feeding service, the health service, all of these that geared towards their safety in school, to learn in an environment that will improve learning outcome. That's the second guiding principle. It also has its own challenges. The third one, radical inclusion. It has 4 core objectives that the government wants to achieve. Now, the first one, you know, went to Ecowas court and institution went to Ecowas court. The ban was overturned on pregnant girls. So we are allowed to go back to school. And the government sat down to say, let's design a program for these kids. So we call them parent learners. But it's not a license for you to go get pregnant and come to school. But we don't want them out of the learning system. Right, they are there. 2 is to ensure that those people coming from far remote end, like Kubola, like Mongo, those coming from Kolifa, Magbang, have access to education. Another one, the third one, is those with special needs. And there are categories of those with special needs: the visually impaired, the dumb, the physically challenged. And those who come from poor family background. That's the third one. And the last one being quality teaching and learning. This is where you zoom in teacher management, teacher professional development. This is where we have, when the president pronounced, we're going to motivate teachers by having the best teachers award. This is where our governments have ensured they've trained teachers, recruit teachers, but not without challenges. So those are the 4 guiding principles if we want to assess the free quality education. So let's start with access. to know how much government have paid, because we say Access government is paying direct fees for this. He said that, and it's correct. But just to reiterate, as civil society is monitoring, first of all, we must ensure that year after year or term after term, the gross enrollment rate continue to increase. But again, there are challenges because we have evidence of civil society that some principal in some schools and some head teachers in some schools do inflate this figure because they want the money. We have those evidences. So this is why before they pay subsidy now, they will go do head counts. As I'm talking to you, the second term free subsidy has not been paid. It's not the reason that finance has delayed to pay. It's not that Ministry of Basic Education has delayed to pay. They have to account for it. They have to clean the system. So they have to go for returns to school to ascertain that those numbers you say you have in every kid should have NIN, National Identification Number. I am telling you now that in the western area where you have the rural and the urban, and in the eastern region where you have Kailaun, Kenema, Kono, each and every school pupil, government and government assisted, have nil. That work was done by the NCRA, for which we issue out a press release to commend Mohammed Masako, the Director General. This will further reduce fraud in terms of the number of people who go to city education, public examination, the number of people who government pay fees for, and the actual number of people in school. So looking at the education sector plan with 9 key objectives, one of those objectives is to eliminate corruption in education. So you see this thing, access, the subsidy, the NIN, and part of the objective is to eliminate corruption in education. So what are the challenges in this? So we now see when we have so many kids in school, there is need to construct more schools and more classrooms. So let's zoom there. In terms of classroom construction, the EU project, they've constructed over 500 classrooms. The Free Quality Education Secretariat is at the verge of constructing about 20 blocks, which will house about 60 classrooms. The FEPS, the Free Education Project, anchored in World Bank, it's a multi-donor trust program. The Irish Aid, the World Bank, UNICEF, different donors, the GP, they put money into baskets. That one is being managed by the secretariat called FEPS. They also are constructing classrooms because the system has stretched. If we have to have quality teaching and learning and ensure learning outcome improve, the teacher-pupil ratio, we must consider it. As of now, it's about 70. So we want to further reduce it to about 50. So that's the first. Second, you go to comprehensive safety. 2018 as a baseline, you look at the number of schools that have wash facility in 2023, upward trajectory. Now, in the education sector plan, we are saying you must have separate toilet for boys and separate toilet for girls. And UNICEF have been supporting MBSSC in that direction. The World Bank and other individuals go to schools. As I'm talking to you now, if you go to the RC school, the Rural Education Committee School in Ogu Farm, they are now constructing separate toilet for boys and girls. That one is an individual doing it because that individual knows the only thing that can take Sierra Leone from level A to level B that is sustainable is education. And thirdly, look at the radical inclusion. Last month, I made a statement in that occasion. We are in schools with special needs. We are supplied with assistive devices. We are supplied with uniform, shoes. The sad thing about the Ministry of Basic Education, they are not popularizing. They are not engaging the public. This is where they score 1 over 10. Because what we are saying is like, they can't talk for the ministry. They don't engage the media. They don't engage community when they do these things. So people say, Alfonso, the vuvuzela for the Ministry of Basic Education. It's not like that. I follow the program, so I can talk about those programs fluently, anywhere, without holding any book, because I follow the process. For instance, we also have the teacher code of conduct. And in that document, where you have those 5 principles, my brother, it is clearly stated how parents report whether the teacher, whether the principal or the school administration, in terms of education malpractice. When we talk of education governance, go to the streets, ask how many parents know about the teacher code of conduct. You ask some teachers, they don't even know about the document. They don't engage the public. They don't popularize. And that's the downside of the ministry. Now you talk of the curriculum. For over 30 years, that department have died. In 2021, we review the curriculum. We have new syllabus. Almost possible, so we'll get confidence for sending picking a government school, so we'll get new curriculum. They don't popularize. They don't engage the public. Now you talk of those policies. Let me name those policies for you that they have done. You have the radical inclusion policy, the school catchment area policy, integrated early childhood development policy, the school feeding policy, teacher management policy, teacher development and performance policy, teacher registration and licensing, comprehensive school safety. That's work in progress. We're almost completing it. And the review of the 2004 education, that's where I want to zoom into. When we had the first celebration of the Education Week, I was in the panel. And I told the president, I said, the first thing you need to do is to review the 2004 Education Act because it's old, it's obsolete. Considering we are implementing the free quality education, this is 2023. Now, the ministry have started the process, but sadly though, they have not consulted with those real stakeholders. I said they have not been consulted. Education for All Coalition. 2 months ago, I was in the ministry. I went to the CEO. I was working. And the director of quality assurance met me. Hey, what's your organization in name? I think to myself, we get this for review the Education Act. A serious document like that. And one of the downside of the ministry is the quality assurance department. They are performing below performance. I'm saying this. When you give people those important positions, post people who can perform. Those DDs we have in the districts, they will not say it in public. Most of them are demotivated because of the head of the quality assurance. I'm saying this so President Biogo Yeri go correct them. Because sometimes the minister had the tie behind back. We're not afraid for talking here. The department, the quality assurance department, where for do money all that thing is weak. In order up to the tax. You review the 2004 Education Act, critical education stakeholders, therefore take part in that discussion. Take today. But we are waiting for that document for going to Parliament. Because in Mekan Kuku Jumuku say for going to Parliament. They will know the strength of civil society. So the government is doing well, upward trajectory. But in terms of engaging, Sierra Leone is the only country where you wait man and nobody to education past we. You go to Dove Court, you ask them, Mami, they don't know nothing. But you go to Waitman, you outside, they tell you from A to Z what they do. That is not correct. Engage the people. Take them along so they understand. So when it comes to the implementation of the education sector plan, community will contribute. For instance, if there is no water in government model secondary school, the community are aware there is no, then the community will come together and show say the school where water. If they go to some school, the bulb don't fuse. If the community are aware, the waiting the ministry, they buy that bulb, they put and you don't wait for school subsidy. Corruption in education is the biggest thing we get for fight against in this education. The biggest thing is corruption in education. For this WAS, 2,500 kids are not going to write the WAS. I'm saying this. They've taken that decision. Why? Because 6 schools in the Western area refuse to upload deliberately. We don't know the reason why. Because when you go to work will assess them picking there. You know, okay, 40-year-old might tell me, say, for go sit WAS. Now, private WAS, if you go sit. Right? So all those who are sitting private to us, they all don't balance go inside the school system. And then they pay money for going inside the school system. And this money is not being accounted for. So this is why parents will tell you, even though we have the free quality education, parents are spending money because of corruption, transparency. The parents are waiting there for benefit. Also, they all know. Okay. When they distribute textbook, the anonymous textbook, they picking forget. They give them 2 and then they take, they give them 3. They don't create the enabling environment for parents to ask the right questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Alfonso. Now, before we go over to Ramati Jallo from Child Rights Coalition, I'd like to come back to you, Bami. You mentioned some of the successes on the part of the ministry, the minister as well. Now, what have been some of the challenges during these 5 years, taking into consideration also some of the few challenges highlighted here this morning? Please take us through some of the challenges and how that has impacted the delivery of the free quality education.
Thank you very much. I would love to start with what Alfonso ended up with right there. He mentioned that about 2,500 candidates were potential candidates may not be writing the 2023 WASC exams, simply because their information or pieces of information were not uploaded on the portal, the WIRED portal. Yes, it's true. So one of the challenges we have is sabotage. One of it is a lot of school leaders are sabotaging the situation, the implementation of the free quality school education program. By extension, as a consequence, will tell on the keys. For example, we all know the processes of getting to register for an examination, like WASC. You have to go through uploading the entries on the WIRED portal. The time is given for that. And WASC is an international examination where 5 countries, not just Sierra Leone, are all part of the Nigeria, Ghana, the Gambia, Liberia, or so. So when the portal is opened, it is opened not just for Sierra Leone, but for the other African countries, West African countries. So it was opened in September. All principals, senior secondary school principals were asked to upload the candidates, the information of their candidates. Some did, and some did not. Some came with complaints of challenges, and they were addressed. It was reopened 2nd, 3rd, and 4th time. What happened at the 4th time, before the 4th reopening, the CEO summoned all these heads of schools, these principals, together with CPSS, the Council of Principals of Senior Secondary School, and even Sierra Leone Teachers Union, to talk to them in strict terms that this is the final opportunity that we have. Make sure you upload all your information of your candidates between the 20th March and the 31st of March. What happened? She also continued to say, if you think that you have any challenge in the process within this period, please run to the ministry or go to the regional or district headquarters offices to complain, because we will help you. We have the technical people. 8 schools now, it's just 6. 8 schools now have reported not completing the process. And by so doing, about 2,500 and even more candidates will not be writing or may not be writing the exams because the portal is officially closed. So that is one, is sabotage. The second we will say is the influx of kids running to the free quality school education program. As he rightly mentioned, Mr. Alfonso Manley, that before now we had 1,900,000 candidates, pupils in school. But now we have over 3 million pupils in school. That has to talk about sitting accommodation, that has to talk about teacher-pupil ratio, that has to talk about the wash facility and a lot of other things. So we also have shortage of qualified teachers in the classroom, even when we have recruited over 12,000 qualified teachers. So that is to also tell you that for a long period of time in this country, we've gotten a large number of teachers in the classroom that are not really qualified teachers to teach. So the very reason the ministry has undertaken teacher training for over 22,000 teachers within the period of 5 years. So a lot of challenges we face, but I will have to pause for now and give opportunity.
Okay, so now over to you. We'll come back to you though, Alfonso, because you have some clarifications to make as well. So Ramatu, please tell us a little bit about the Child Rights Coalition, Sierra Leone.
Good morning, everyone. Hello, good morning, and thank you for being here. The Child Rights Coalition is a group of civil society organizations. You've got international organizations, the national civil society organizations, and community-based organizations. We're based across the country, and basically our focus is really looking at issues relating to child rights, ensuring that their rights are fulfilled, and we're able to fulfill them and meet the needs of children and make sure that they have their full potential fulfilled in Sierra Leone.
Okay, so we've heard the call on Parliament to actually go forward to review the Child Rights Act. What are some of the challenges the former act has, or the act still in existence, has posed to the rights of children, and why are you seeking those amendments or the review?
I think in many ways the previous act tried to meet and try to protect children as much as possible. But for us as a civil society, we looked at specific areas. Now I'm going to try and focus on one specific area. The initial things that we actually reached out to government about was the detention of children. I think that's a whole separate conversation in itself, but I really wanted to speak to the issue of child marriage. Now, we know that in the previous act, that wasn't really addressed. That's a gap. Sierra Leone has a serious issue. We've got very high maternal mortality rates. Of course, you also know that we've got high teenage pregnancy rates. As a result of that, our young girls are at risk. They're dying every day. They're not fulfilling their potential every day. In terms of empowerment, they're not empowered. Yet, at this moment in time, the government is speaking to female empowerment. Now, if we don't really look after our girls or protect them at an early age, how are we going to expect to have women in government? How are we going to expect to have the great housewives that our husbands or partners in Sierra Leone expect them to be? And how, to be honest, how are we going to have a society that actually functions at its full potential? We know that Sierra Leone has the potential to be great, but until you bring on about 50% of the population on board, you're not going to achieve that. So these are some of the reasons why we're looking to seeing how we can address this issue of child marriage. But I can speak to that a bit more.
Ramatu, approximately 16 years now since the Child Rights Act was enacted in 2007. Proudly so, as a teenager then, I was part of those processes, you know, going forward into ensuring how, you know, children's rights are cared for and catered for. As a country, 17 years on, looking at how well equipped that legal instrument is and the need for reforms, as you've highlighted, is it coming late or is it coming too early?
I would say when it comes to change, it's never too late. Change can happen at any time, right? And one of the things that behaviorists always say is change takes time. So let's assume that possibly this is the right time, considering that government has put in place and sort of amended the Sexual Offences Act, considering we've now got the Gender Empowerment Bill. I mean, we've got a lot of things within the current political environment that is enabling us to really speak to issues affecting girls. Now, when it comes to girls, one of the key challenges that we've been really looking at and we've been really trying to push for is addressing the issue of early child marriage. Why early child marriage? We know that a lot of girls have a great potential. I mean, even we've been talking about education this morning, right? If you check maybe the NPSE, the last NPSE exams, you check the Becker exams, girls are doing exceedingly well. So my argument, and I always speak to this, is why aren't we allowing all girls to be able to access the opportunity to exceed and reach their full potential in order for us to all contribute meaningfully to the development of Sierra Leone? The challenges that we've had in terms of child marriage is the fact that a lot of children, especially a lot of girls in rural communities, are forced into marriage against their will. It could be because maybe the great men in that community see this fine young girl who they want to marry. It could be that families are saying they're too poor, they can't afford to put their girls in education, so they push her into married house. It could be that that girl is challenged with rape or ends up pregnant not out of a choice of her own, and she ends up as taptomi naos, which means, again, she's totally taken out of the system and is now living either with her perpetrator or living a life that doesn't allow her to grow beyond her possible potential. So for us, we're saying that we need to address this issue of child marriage. If we end child marriage, we allow girls to reach their full potential. They finish school, they go to university. Let it be a matter of choice. You cannot tell me that a child under the age of 18 that you call Pikin is a woman all of a sudden. Her body is still growing. She's still maturing. She probably doesn't even know the basics of how to run her home. Yet you put her at home and decide that this child is now a wife. It is not done. So we're really pushing to see if we can have a law that basically says No child under the age of 18 is married, because when you're under 18, you're a child, you do not have a say. It's also a law that anyone who actually pushes for a child to be married, be you a parent or a guardian, be you an imam, you're solemnizing it, be you a paramount chief or any other individual or the great man in that community that wants to marry anyone under the age of 18, that you will face the full force of the law. And this is what we're pushing for.
Ramatu, before we go for our new summer break, you know, looking at all these reforms needed and looking at the disparity between the Child Rights Act as it is now and other enactments, say, for example, the Sexual Offences Act, where children are also as well liable for sexual offences. How will this new bill visiting the corridors of Parliament ensure there is harmony between these laws?
I think there's going to be a debate on this anyway in Parliament today. But I think in many ways, the harmony comes in where you've got the new Child Rights Act or the Child Rights Bill that's going to incorporate ending child marriage. You've got the Sexual Offences Act that basically ensures there's full punishment for any perpetrator of rape or offense towards a child. And I think in many ways, they speak to each other. The gap that we've got in the law at the moment is the fact that although according to national law, a child is a child unto the age of 18 and they shouldn't be married nationally, it's not really recognized within any of the legal, what do you call it? The legal books, should we say. So for example, you've got the Customary Laws Act, where a child at the age of 16 and under can actually be put into marriage or allowed to marry, the Customary Laws Act or whatever. You're allowed to marry if you have consent from your parent or from a guardian. Now, with this law, basically, if we have the current Child Rights Bill, and we've got the prohibition of child marriage within this bill that says no marriage until the age of 18, you're harmonizing all of these bills. It'll show that the Sexual Offences Act, in line with the new Child Rights Act, will actually work in harmony. And then the Customary Law Act or Customary Act will be null and void. So this is my thinking around it. And I'm sure this is the logic in which our decision makers are also looking at these different policies and acts.
All right, continue to stay with us, Ramatu. It's 2 minutes past 9. Let's now take our news summary for David M. Wilson, and then we come back to wrap up the segment.
All right, thank you very much, Elizabeth and Matia. Well, in our top stories this morning, President Julius Maada Bio yesterday at State House received a delegation from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, and the African Union, AU, that are on a fact-finding mission and to guide the level of the country's preparedness for the June 24 multi-tier elections.
Leader of the delegation, Commissioner Ambassador Dr. Abdel Fattah Musa, thanked the presidents for the reception and said their visit was in fulfillment of the 2 main protocols of the Regional Economic Bloc, ECOWAS, and the Continental Union, the AU. He added that the ECOWAS Supplementary Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance and the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance obligate these 2 bodies to render necessary assistance to member states on the eve of the organization of their elections. He said the team would also engage the different political parties, civil society groups, traditional leaders, and other parties that were part of the electioneering processes. Dr. Musa assured that they will put their report together for the attention of the President of the African Union, who will give assistance where needed. In his brief response, President Bio welcomed the team and informed its members that he once led a process to a democratic rule after 30 years of authoritarian rule, adding that he was also pleased to lead the country again into another democratic election. He made reference to his government's efforts at taking anti-democratic laws and barriers out of the way, including expunging sections of the 1965 Public Order Act that criminalized free speech and abolishing the death penalty, which political opponents feared in the past. He said he has broadened democratic space and urged the Election Steering Committee, which are our international partners, to discuss the rules and agree on them way ahead of time to be able to go into the elections with a clear mind.
All right, also yesterday, both President Julius Maada Bio and Dr. Kanayu Mkela on their Twitter handle tweeted that both of them had a consultative meeting to see how best they could be able to consolidate the peace, democracy, and national cohesion as the country moved to its June 24 multi-state elections. And after that meeting, a coalition was set up called Progressive Coalition between the NGC party and the ruling Sierra Leone People's Party. We'll definitely update you on the progress with regards to that. But in another story, the Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of Sierra Leone, Professor Fodisa, has revealed that transportation and the unavailability of lecture rooms are some of the key among the major challenges faced by the University of Sierra Leone. He made this revelation during the confinement of degrees, diplomas, and certificates of over 1,800 graduates yesterday at Fabi College.
When I was reappointed as Vice Chancellor and Principal of this university in September last year, I was mandated to guide the university towards the attainment of a world-class research entity that promotes a culture of innovative teaching and learning methods that anchor on an effective quality assurance system. In the fulfillment of that mandate, our activities were hinged on the following. One, to reinvigorate impactful research within the university, to support and invest in technology-driven processes, to strengthen our administrative and financial systems by exploiting alternative income generation and prudent financial management.
It has been a tedious journey, but we thank God that it has finally ended today. The 8 years journey has been very tedious for me, but I give God the glory for all what I've gone through. I want to appreciate my maker.
I am very excited. I'm in the feeling of joy and excitement. It's too much. I can't even express the way I feel right now. All I can say to you is that it's an awesome experience, and I'm really delighted. I'm really happy.
All right, finally, Sierra Leone's alcohol debt, according to 2022 data published by the organizations, account for about 52 or 0.9% of total debt in the country. The age-adjusted debt rate is 1.31 per 1,000 of the country's population, ranking Sierra Leone 98 in the world. These statistics indicate the harm caused by alcohol among the country's population, hence the need for the national alcohol policy launched by the Ministry of Health together with partners.
This policy here is to reduce the harm from alcohol use. Some of the objectives are: one, we want to ensure that we have effective regulations of production, distribution, and supply of alcohol in Sierra Leone. And we also want to ensure that we have effective regulation in the availability and accessibility of alcohol products. We also want to promote health service and other sectors' response to harmful use of alcohol.
Root is in this business because we use the human rights lens to pursue our work on alcohol control. And for that, we take children as the center for controlling alcohol. And we hope that the implementation of this national policy will help to provide a safe, enabling environment for children to live in, where alcohol will not be a hindrance.
All right, that's all we have in our top stories this morning. Back to Elizabeth and Bokari Matia in our main studios.
Welcome back. You're still watching Wake Up Sierra Leone here on AYV channel 33. We're also live on DSTV channel 399. We're live on radio 101.7 FM and live on our Facebook page AYV News. Now we'll continue the conversation, and in this segment we have been talking to Ramatu Jallo, who is from Child Right Coalition Sierra Leone, and they're calling on Parliament to pass into law the new Child Rights Bill.
Ramatu, still on the issue with regards to this bill, you've highlighted the importance of how this bill, when enacted, will bring out the several provisions needed, especially against early marriage, and this, of course, has a ripple effect. But there are other areas of concern as well, child trafficking, child labor, etc. And this has been going for a very long time. How will this act or this new bill strengthen some of those provisions that are in the already existent 2007 law?
I think those were in the previous act anyway, and I think in many ways there's not going to be much change to those areas. I think there's going to be a lot of debate today in Parliament to look at issues around hazardous work, and of course they'll be looking at some of those areas. So I think there's much discussion around that. But I think in many ways I'm assured, especially with regards to the work that the Ministry of Gender and Children's Affairs have been doing to ensure that the issue around trafficking continues to be addressed. And I think in many ways, just going back generally to the issue of protection, one of the gaps, and I think even if the bill is enacted, it becomes an act. The key concern that I think we as civil society will have is, regardless of all of these things within the Child Rights Act, there's underinvestment. There's underinvestment around the protection system. There's underinvestment in terms of putting key mechanisms or systems in place. So even if we have a wonderful policy or wonderful act, if investment doesn't go into this, then we are in trouble. We still aren't going to fulfill our children's needs or fulfill their rights under this new bill. So I think in many ways, one of the things that civil society has been calling for, we know that the Ministry of Gender and Children's Affairs are doing their best to try and protect the welfare of children and ensure children have their rights fulfilled. However, there's not much investment. When you compare them to other ministries, there's more investment in other ministries, which is valid. I'm not saying it's not valid, please don't get me wrong. However, I think you need to look at the issue of what protection does against health, against education. You can't have one without the other. And we're talking of child rights, we're talking about their survival, we're talking about their development, we're talking about empowerment, we're talking about access to education. So all of these fall in place, and you cannot have one without the other. So I think for us, our plea really, yes, please pass this act, pass this bill, make sure that it goes through. That is one. I think that takes you a full so many miles ahead in terms of reaching the fulfillment of all children in Sierra Leone, but also consider investment and more investment in the protection of children to ensure that they can actually meet their full potential.
Right, continue to stay with us, John. Quickly over to you, Augustia and Anfoso. They're interesting debate and conversation also going on Facebook with regards the education sector. But before we go over to those, Augustine, you were highlighting some of what Alfonso was shedding light on. We're having a chunk of pupils who, well, may not attend this year's WASC exam for certain reasons. There are also key concerns that were raised by him with the NIN and what we saw happened during the registration process and the last WASC, etc., etc. It is safe to say that there are challenges, even though the ministry has done a lot in terms of education, but there are challenges. And these legitimate challenges, for example, a pronouncement made by President Bio is that there will be a drive towards shifting the school system to a one-shift system. And especially in the capital, Freetown, people were happy, so to speak, looking at the fact that, you now have a shift system where I just have to go to school probably from 9 in the morning to 2, and then I'm off. I'll go home and do, but 5 years down the line, schools are still struggling. Of course, the argument has been accommodation. And I think the minister on one occasion highlighted, for example, model. Say, for example, model. Even if you want to put up a structure at model school, you don't have the grounds for a structure. So it is going to be difficult to have a one-shift system. And as such...
But not impossible.
But not impossible, but difficult. And you have other schools who have the grounds and who can institute those systems, but they are still running two-shift system. How are we going to ensure that promise made by President Biya is actualized?
Thank you, Mokwe. I could see a lot of concerns on the table. I am even confused of which to start with right now. But I have to start with the one you had to end up with, the shift system. Yes, it is a policy. It was part of the pronouncement of the president to really shift the educational system to a single shift system. So, if you read around some policy implementation, you learn to also appreciate the deliberate efforts that are taken by policy implementers in delivering what they promised. That is how people really assess genuinely policies. It is really not the 100% implementation. It is what you've done towards getting that done. So over the period of 4 years, yes, we had over 550 schools in this country that we are running shift schools in one way or the other. As I speak right now, we have less than 50 schools that are running a single shift system in one way or the other. We can say one way or the other in the sense we have morning, afternoon. There are various types of shift schools, shift system. So if one is asking, what have you done in really translating the policy of going to a single shift system? Yes, we have done more than 80%. Because if you go to the annual school census report, you will see that from 550 and more to now less than 50 that are just running a single shift system. And what is more integral, it is about having bigger fishes. I want to really call them that name.
Mm-hmm.
Schools like the Prince of Wales. Yeah? Look at schools like Edwards. Look, schools like the St. Joseph's Convent. Go to St. Francis in McKinney. These are bigger schools. The Anzaru. Go to schools in Kenema. These are bigger schools that have gone back or reverted to the single shift system within this period. Why do we still have some schools that are yet running the double shift, as the minister rightly put it? We don't have to have a one jacket system for all. There are certain schools, as he said, have problems with space. The model is one big example. So if you like this UMC, Circular Road is another example. Small buildings above spaces. If you want to have these schools go back to a single shift, they have to do it in phases. You will have to ask the school authorities to reduce the intake, the number, and that has to be done in phases, because you really do not want to disadvantage those who are already in school.
Will that be done when these principals or head teachers need the number for the subsidy?
So that is where the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education regulates. In policy, we say you cannot build the ship on the sea. You really have to do that outside until you try it and see what happens. So the pronouncement was there was going to be a shift to a single shift system, right? But the implementation now is revealing that yes, even when there is going to be a shift, but it is going to be in phases or certain times with other methodologies, as is happening with other schools. We have partners that are supporting us.
Can I commit you to how long it will take for us to actually actualize a single shift system throughout our education system?
It took us less than 3 years to revert more than 500 schools. But it is also going to take us a little more years to get these few other schools reverted to a single shift. Let me don't waste time on that. Let me go to the other concern that they raised. Maybe you will guide me through. I think the other concern they raised, you could guide me. I am a little lost in that.
Yes.
Okay, just before you answer that,
Elizabeth.
let's talk about the budget for the free quality education. You know, Sustainable Development Goal, the Agenda for 2030 has Goal 4 talking about, I mean, it aims to ensure inclusive learning for all and to promote lifelong learning opportunities.
Yeah.
Now, with a free quality education and its budget, do you think this is something that is sustainable? Will other governments, continuing governments, be able to keep up with this?
I think I have the authority to talk about what is happening now at the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education. I may be misinterpreted if I venture into the future. So I want to really stay with this. In the period of 5 years, yes, he spoke about the 22% of the recurrent budget to education. I want to let viewers understand that this is not the GDP, it is the recurrent budget. Recurrent budget means it is what is used to pay teachers, it is what is used to pay lecturers, it is what is used to run the school, to run the administration. Yeah, so that is the recurrent budget. So that is 22%, it's huge. But what has this done to our learning situation in 5 years? Let's take a look at quick statistics. I've spoken about enrollment. Let's take a look at GARS. For a long period of years in Sierra Leone, over a long period of years, only 98,000 GARS reached SS3 in this country. For a very long period of time in this country. But now as we speak, we have over 206,000 GARS in SS3. That is a huge manifestation. It's a significant improvement. Look at completion rate. We had gotten only 49% of our pupils that are going to school completing SS3. 49% in this country. Now, as we speak, we have 90% of our pupils going to school that are completing SS3. That is another significant improvement. Let's look at transition rates. Those who transition from primary to GSS and the senior secondary. Before now, in 2018, we only had 53% of our primary school pupils who really were transiting to senior secondary school, to GSS. Now we have up to 84% of those that are passing the Becker exams, the MPSC exams. Go to WASC. Before now, we only had 48% of our candidates going to colleges, polytechnics, or universities. Now we have 119% increase on that, given that we had 18% passes in 2018 at WASC. Now, as I speak, the last 2022, we clocked 61% of our candidates passing the exams. That is what we look at as value for money when it comes to the 22%.
As we close now, Alfonso, looking at this past 5 years and all what we've discussed and taken into consideration the challenges you've highlighted and many more, how would you rate education in general for the past 5 years?
Thank you very much. This is very good. So just you know that the Ministry of Basic Education have several structures. You have the Free Quality Education Secretariat, which also aid in the implementation of the free quality education, and they're doing very well. You also have the delivery team. They're also doing very well. So in terms of those 4 guiding principles, as I have explained, is upward trajectory, all of them. The downside is not engaging the public, community engagement, community and family engagement, which is key. The downside is the Department of Quality Assurance, I'm saying this for the president to take notes, it's not up to the task. Now they will get the biggest problem on this free quality education. That department should not be compromised. We as CSO will say it out, regardless of who that they did. And the Ministry of Education of late, 60 years, they go back saying, when I extend me. What about the others? And this is not correct in the implementation of the free quality. So we as civil society, we will say this out. You 60 years, you should go. Allow others, out fresh ideas. Secondly, in terms of the leadership we have in the Ministry of Basic Education, it's superb. When we went to France for the pre-education summit, There was a session Dr. Moina was addressing young people. We also have a session that coincides. The waitsman and say we have to wait for Dr. Moina Senge because he has to set the pace for the transforming education in New York. Before now, they know you for cut and cut foods. But the world knows now for the radical inclusion, transforming education. You talk of foundation learning. President Biya is the chair. We have never had that opportunity because of the political will. Now come next year, we're talking of pre-primary, compulsory. The act that is now under review is suggesting 1 year, but we say no in 3 years. You understand? You talk of EGMA, the multiple indication cluster survey. They're working towards that to ensure that when picking on go class 3, for identify for reading rights, EGMA. So all of those activities, they're working well. Right. But the monitoring aspect is weak. The outreach aspects of MBSSC is weak. So this is where we have to work on. And they have the kind of team now led by the minister, Moina Senge, is a Cell Sierra Leone. All right. So I'm saying, President Bio, where you are, just focus more on MBSSC. Look some departments, some personnel really need for the day. This is the hold back the implementation of the free quality education. All right. How do we have the QAMS department? You have principal who will send figures and you inflate them and finance pay those money. Who is to be blamed? You go to schools, you see the number of PPs, but when you go to Ministry of Finance, now so the list big. Who is to be blamed? It's the quality assurance department. They are not up to the task. I'm saying this without any fear of favor because we want education to transform.
All right, thank you very much, Alfonso. Ramatu, whilst we close, we're expecting Parliament to debate and also probe into the bill proper, to look at and bring out all what is needed in ensuring children's rights. Do you expect anything more or less from Parliament?
I expect Parliament to really consider the children of Sierra Leone. The parliamentarians are there to serve the nation. And of course, the children are our future. Our children are our future for Sierra Leone. If we make it right, we make sure that that bill is passed, we can really pave the way for children who become the nation builders of this country. We should now think beyond ourselves. We're going, we go now we grave. We think of the future of Sierra Leone and we think of where we want Sierra Leone to be in 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years' time. So my last message to the parliamentarians, please, please, please consider this bill, pass it. Our children are our future. Sierra Leone depends on our children. We want you to respect the rights of children because they're the only resource that we've got beyond our diamond and gold for us to be able to make this country stand out loud, speak out loud, and be the pride of the African continent.
All right, thank you very much, Matu, Augustine, and of course to you, Alfonso. This is all we have time for in this segment. Let's take a quick word from our sponsors, and then we'll be right back for the second and final segment.
Every day, the world wakes up to you. Millions of people are getting ready for you. For shopping, travel expenses, utility bills, trade, and commerce. If we all have wishes, then what is your financial transaction wish?
I'd like to have a choice.
I'd like convenience.
I'd like to pay for goods and services on the go.
I'd like to pay utility bills on the go. Out of credit and data, buy some mobile top-up, still on my phone. Oops, lights out. I'll buy some ETSA, still on my phone.
I'd like to make payment from my account to another account through my mobile phone.
As a CEO of a company, I would like my staff to receive their salaries through bulk e-payment without the risk of transporting cash.
Rokel Commercial Bank SimCorp does it all.
Rokel Commercial Bank SimCorp. Think of it
as money when you're close to home and when you're away from home for unexpected expenses, and money for those times when cash fails.
If you can dream it, you can become it. If you can imagine it, you can achieve it.
Rokel Commercial Bank SimCorp is all you need.
We are now days away from Sierra Leone's dates with destiny, the June 24th general election. In this defining moment in the history of Sierra Leone, here at AYV, we recognize the mantle thrust upon us to be the voice of the nation fully.
We take our task to ensure fair coverage seriously. We intend to honor our pledge to you, to be your home of all things credible, factual, and all times balanced news. Totally This is our commitment to you. We have witnessed non-stop hours of groundbreaking broadcast in an effort that saw AYV rolled out 8 studios across Sierra Leone at Tar Hill, Aberdeen, Makeni, Kenema, Bow, and London, with almost 3 kilometers of coaxial cable laid connecting 4 ground teams that consume almost 100 liters of coffee from Chef Teina. The most important number is 2. Out of dozens of aspirants, only 2 men have emerged from the conventions in February as flag bearers of the APC and SLPP. Retired Brigadier Julius Madabio and Dr. Samuel Matthew Wilson Kamara.
So far, we have witnessed a lot of intrigues. Maybe this is the beginning. Defections and realignments have been plenty. We don't know if there's more to come.
The only thing you can guarantee right now is that your home of credible, factual, and balanced news and analysis, AYV Media Empire, will bring you every twist and turn of this amazing race in full color and in high definition.
We shall have a comprehensive look at the developments around the election as we count down to Sierra Leone State with destiny.
Women clamored and got a law that provides 30% minimum quota in governance. Will that be achieved this June?
Well, one thing is clear. The nation has begun its conversation that will culminate a date with its destiny on the 24th of June. How much will change by then? And what shifts within the political landscape are we going to see?
Find out more on the nation's biggest and most trusted news source, AYV, on Channel 33, on DSTV Channel 399, on Radio 101.7 FM, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and of course on TikTok.
Yes, indeed. Only AYV. Because AYV, Naim Salo Sabi.
Welcome back. This is Wake Up Sierra Leone on AYV television. Now, in our final segment, Parliament a few days ago enacted the Finance Act 2023. The to provide for the imposition and alteration of taxes and to give effect to the financial proposal of the government and to provide for other related matters. However, the act has sparked some mixed feelings amongst business people in Sierra Leone, and some financial experts believe that the Finance Act 2023 represents an approach to address revenue shortfalls to fund essential services. So this morning, to discuss this act, we have in the studio Ibrahim Sori Kamara, Commissioner, Domestic Tax Department, NIA, and Rashid Conte, Secretary General of the Sierra Leone Porters Association. Gentlemen, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Before I go over to you, gentlemen, we have a position from Betts Farm on a serialized explanation on the Finance Act 2023, just so we set the very flaws and foundation of this particular discourse. Let's take that 1 minute, 23 seconds insert, and then we come back.
On 4th April 2023, the Finance Act 2023 was passed by Parliament. It's still waiting presidential assent. So the key revenue enhancing measures introduced in the Finance Act are: firstly, the minimum alternate tax for companies, meaning that companies will have to pay 3% of their turnover even if they make a loss. Secondly, the stamp duty rate was increased from 0.5% to 2%. Thirdly, there's introduction of the tourism levy at 2%, meaning that tourist businesses will have to charge an extra 2% for accommodation, for food, drinks, etc. More significantly, there have been major changes in the GST exemptions list. Firstly, there's a reintroduction of the GST on fee-based financial services charged by banks of 15%. There's also a removal of the GST for plant and machinery for manufacturing, mining, and agriculture. And there's also a removal of the GST for solar products, and also the removal of the GST for port services for rice, importation of rice. Lastly, there's an introduction of the annual circulation levy of 200 new leons for vehicles and KKYs. For more information on the Finance Act, please go to our social media pages.
I feel there's a version there for Bet's farm, but for the NRA, is this the fine act bringing out what we need in terms of revenue generation?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Basically, let me just probably educate listeners and viewers on the purpose of Finance Act annually. Basically, this law comes into effect to handle the tax aspect in any fiscal year, looking at areas where government can raise revenue and also consolidating or strengthening existing tax laws with the aim of financing the budget, and also seeing where government can incentivize or support the business sector to stand on their feet to support the government at the end of the day by paying the correct taxes. So the Finance Act actually goes with the budget to identify those areas of funding and strengthening the tax laws and closing the loopholes. That's basically what this one intends to achieve. And more especially in terms of revenue generation. And we've seen over the years, most Finance Acts have been geared towards giving incentive to businesses, helping them to grow, making sure that a lot of exemption in terms of GST, customs duties, corporate taxes, looking at certain sectors to see how they can be incentivized to strengthen them. For instance, in 2021 Finance Act, we saw exemption for the tourist sector, wherein they are exempt from corporate income tax till 2024. So they are not paying anything for 3 years. And we've seen also a lot of exemptions to encourage the agricultural sector, mobile companies, and in previous act, basically. So this year, the government sees how we can generate more money. And mind you, the economy of the world is facing a lot of problems. And domestically, we have to generate the revenues. Gone are those days when we rely on external funding to finance our activities as a government or as a nation. So we need to look within to see how we can get those resources. So that's one of the things this Finance Act actually try to address. Maybe if you permit me, I'll look at the individual issues and see how we can deliberate on them further. I'll look at, firstly, the area of minimum alternate tax, which sets it at 3% of turnover. We need to know what turnover is. Of course, maybe in subsequent deliveries or write-ups, we'll provide an interpretation of what turnover means in this context and see how this law can be applicable. But basically, the aim of this law in terms of setting the 3% turnover tax is to address the high-end taxpayers who have a lot of sophistication and a lot of tax planning arrangements, whose objective, among others, would be to shift the tax base from where the economic activity actually takes place to some other jurisdiction where they can pay zero or no taxes.
Okay.
So how can we sit by as a revenue generating institution or as a Minister of Finance, for instance, seeing activities being done in Sierra Leone, money is being taken away and not paying a single dime? And these kind of businesses are multinational companies, and they make use of the loopholes, they make use of exemption regimes, and they walk away. So what we're saying here with respect to the minimum alternate tax here is that we'll look at the tax on turnover. Firstly, you estimate your turnover for us, and we can have that as a presumptive kind of approach. You pay provision on that. When the year ends, you have the responsibility to do your financial statement, disclose your actual profit. So in an event wherein what you've paid as minimum exceeds your actual tax profit, definitely you are subject to a credit, which you can utilize to offset any future obligations or even current obligations that exist. And times without number, after we've audited most firms or all businesses, as our audit plans dictate, we'll see situations where taxpayers will have to pay more money to us. We've never audited a firm which we've not established liabilities. So having that money within our custody may even help you to offset. You don't go back to the drawing board to think about how can you get the money. NI has got some money already. Maybe somebody will argue it's a part of cash flow, whatever, and so on. But there's already a penalty provision in the law for under declaration and the rest of it. So this will provide a buffer where taxpayers will now have the comfort to know that, oh, I have X amount there, and I can use that one. I have not paid my PAY, and I can use that one. I have some areas on GST. So it creates that comfort zone, an envelope which can be played with around for businesses to thrive. So at the end of the day, you are comfortable. But in an event wherein you are not even able to recover, the minimum tax you've paid is to some extent still giving you some more resources. You have that credit to be utilized over a period of 10 years. Each year being treated individually. So you're not saying because you have a credit in year 1, year 2 also on credit. Year 1 lasts for 10 years, year 2 lasts for 10 years. It goes on like that. So you have that resources. So in an event where you even have significant cash flow issues, you can tap into that envelope to offset any current obligations going forward. And that will put you in a position where you'll be deprived or you will be restrained from going out there to find resources to meet your tax obligations, basically. So the idea here is to target high-end tax planners who have the sophistication to employ experts to play within the tax laws, the gaps therein, to see how they can minimize obligations or even not paying any dime at all, and also to see that there is resources within the operations of the state that can be used to finance activities at the same time, giving you a buffer to tap into whenever there's a need for it to meet that one. And we've seen a lot of international models that are targeting those kind of things, the base erosion, the OECD models on transfer pricing, and all those kind of things. So these laws are basically consistent in closing the tax gap, in minimizing avoidance practices, which are very sophisticated. And even when we do audits, obviously, there are lots of issues around that. So, which we know to go into for the purpose of these discussions. So that will provide a kind of comfort. Then looking at the GST on rice and whatever the Bet Farm has highlighted, definitely when you look at the law, at times you need to have the lens behind the wording of the law. And what is it intending to achieve? The lawyers will say the intention of the drafters. Basically, if rice is exempt from GST, without the port service, can you get the rice to the doorstep of the consumer? No. We provided rulings in the past. We have evidence to the effect. Significant rice importers have come to my office and we provided a ruling that that's why it's exempt. And nobody has asked them to pay a dime. And most of these laws, when they're enacted, they are not only going to be interpreted in isolation of other laws existing, and also where the taxpayers have critical issues they think they need clarifications on, they seek private rulings. We also have public rulings who do. We have what's called Commissioner General's practicing notes. So these are the areas, look at the nitty-gritties, look at the areas where the ordinary man will not see, or you not see look at the areas where the text of the law will not probably show those kind of things. So we have those kind of situations which we normally create. So it's not a deviation for what used to happen, maybe tightening laws that are existing and so on. Then probably it talks about the stamp duty of 2%.
Yeah, just to comment that, because there are many new provisions in the new act, the stamp duty fee you've just mentioned, the tourism levy, the minimum alternate tax you're also mentioning. Now, what is the intention of the draft, of the bill makers? What is the intention?
It's always revenue. That's the basic intention here. You know, as I mentioned earlier, we've got series of finance acts since 2010, 2011, 2016, 2018, 2019, 2020. At all those finance acts, massive incentives have been given to businesses. The tourist sector, 3 years corporate tax free. Last year, we've not collected a single dime from any hotel operative for corporation tax. Zero tax. The previous year again, this year again, we're talking about. They pay zero corporate tax, incentivizing them to stand on their feet, considering the calamity that befell them during the corona. So we're talking about 2% tourist levy. What we're saying here is that we are targeting the high-end consumers. We're not targeting people who eat in the cookie buffers or those local places which form a major percentage of the population of Sierra Leone. We're looking at people who can walk into the hubs, for instance, into the lagundas, into the country lodge, those sophisticated places, and walk in and take food or whatever there. You're not, you might be a poor man, but at that point, you want it to be treated differently. And the sector is also an area which we've identified as economic diversification area. We're looking at how can we tap into that. When people come to Sierra Leone, they admire even the natural topography of the country. We have a lot more, whatever. What have we done as a country to develop it? To see how much money we can get from it. Can we get money coming from heaven to finance that one? We finance it ourselves. So the users of that sector, the frequent users, are the ones that are supposed to finance that sector. And that is what is happening most places in the world. So that's why the law made it clear. Those monies are going to be collected ring-fenced for tourist development. You don't want to go to number 2 next time and you see that kind of road. And even to access those beaches, you don't even have proper sitting places. Even access to those places is difficult, you know, because government hasn't got the resources to improve them. You know, so this 2% is targeting people who will walk into those sophisticated places and buy from those places, and they can afford. If you have spent 200,000, they say pay 2,000 tax. I'm not sure anybody will die in the process. you know. And if you look at the users, of course, there are various classes of users. That is why what we call market segmentation. You segment yourself. You think you have that class, you go there, you meet the cost. The GST is not even applicable to everybody, generally.
In fact, that's what I wanted to ask.
It depends on where you consume, what you choose to buy from, and where you think you buy.
But would that education reach those who are actually going to those businesses or entities?
Sorry?
This education now, that this tax is not on all businesses.
It's not on all businesses. We are targeting GST registered businesses, and there's a threshold for that. As long as you don't reach the threshold, you cannot pay those taxes. Even the GST elements, firstly, let alone the 2% tourist levy.
What's the threshold?
You know, well, the threshold GST, it was reduced to 100 million, but of course, administratively, we're still looking at something on the higher side, which was there initially, until we're able to amend it, basically, because we're going to look at all of those, basically. But let's assume it's even at the initial value of 350 or so, or 200, as we were saying, for legal purposes. Administratively, we provide guidance, as I mentioned earlier. Right. So on the baseline is that it's not affecting the people that are down there, who we probably think are so they're suffering masses. Okay. So there are classes of consumers which look at. And the financial, let me just go on through, please. The GST on financial services, as also mentioned, these are fee-based services.
Yeah.
Nobody will say you paid GST on your depositing account. The salary that goes to your account, nobody has charged GST on that.
Again, even though you've mentioned that this is to generate revenue, why reintroduce that again when it was removed?
Because there was a loss of revenue.
Okay.
When it was initially removed. And these are services an ordinary man may not, to some extent, private. So let's say you want to do international transfers. You have a family abroad. You want to transfer money there. The bank is doing that service for you. You pay a fee for that. That fee you pay, not the value of the transfer, the fee on the service. That is where you pay the GST. And another reason again is that if you relieve the financial service sector from GST, you know what it means? They're going to have increased cost of operations. Because most of the services they're using, the goods they are buying to operate their banks, are GST chargeable. If they're not able to charge GST on their output, those costs are going to be embedded in their operations, high cost of operations, killing business as well, you know. But if they're able now to charge GST on fee-based services, they're able to reclaim some of those charges, and fair tax prices will obviously result. Another disadvantage is that when these GSTs are charged by these people, the banks buy services or goods from, and they're embedded in their cost of operation. You know the effect on corporate tax? It will reduce because cost of operation will increase. So we are saying that GST is an input-output. You claim what you have paid as against the service you are rendering. So
let's bring in Rashid. There's a position paper from your organization and many other associations and organizations as well on all of these. Quickly, take us through, as he is highlighted, you know, the goal behind this is to generate revenue, but there's a legitimate concern from the business community that with the way the economy is going, with everything, even though there's a good side to this, there's a bad side for the business community. Take us through that.
Thank you very much. Even the passing of the 2023 financial bill was passed in bad faith. There has been a tradition whereby Ministry of Finance will consult with the private sector. You don't need to take our word for it. Consult. We are partners. We are not enemies. There is not a single year that NRA haven't achieved their target, smashed their target, and exceed their targets, which means the business community is paying their taxes. Again, the commissioner's arguments have just been eroded. Now, simplification of taxes is one of the goals for a tax. So why do you need a separate lens to go and actually look behind the words? To me, as a business person, I don't have to employ an expert to go and look at the interpretation itself. What you state there, it's law. You read it and you understand it. Okay, he's talking about the GST threshold. Let me tell you now, the GST threshold, international best practice states that for you to be GST registered, you must have a turnover of $50,000. When it was enacted in 2010, it was at that level. With the exchange rate, it was $350 million for $50,000. They reviewed it in 2021. It came to they brought it down to 100 million. 100 million is barely $8,500 turnover. Now, 100 million today is $4,700. Tell me which cookie shop will not turn over that amount. So if you're saying, no, you're targeting the big guys, cookie shops, with the price of rice today, every cookie shop will be actually targeted because it's law. If you say, oh, no, I will not target them, but take it out of the law, increase the threshold. Let me come back again to Time Magazine. Time Magazine recently ranked Sierra Leone among the 50 top countries in the world. COVID killed the hospitality sector and the tourism sector. For 2 years, these people haven't got businesses. Some of them have not recovered. So now gradually they're recovering. Time Magazine is helping them. Governments have been trying so hard to promote Sierra Leone as a tourist destination. What do? Leverage on it. Bring down the prices of things. Reduce taxes. Encourage people to start coming. When you start getting a lot of people, then you start increasing taxes. Don't forget, we're competing against other countries like Senegal, the Gambia. From London to Gambia, return, including hotel, is about £700 sterling. Tickets from London to Freetown, London, is about $1,400. Sometimes it goes as high as $2,000. So how can you encourage tourists to actually come into the country? You can't. If this bill is enacted, let me tell you what will happen. We're going to lose jobs. The country is the Ministry of Trade have been trying hard to help Sierra Leone on business ranking to actually go up. But you're going to discourage new businesses coming into the country because you've just increased about 9 different taxes. Already the cost of rice is extremely high. The minimum wage is about 700,000. The cost of rice is 700,000. So you could say the cost of living is so high, this is nailing the coffin on people, on the ordinary man. Of course, there is no GST on rice, but with the port charges, this is part of cost. Last 2 weeks, I brought a container from China. The container got to the port, I cleared it from the port, took it to Bo. It cost me 17 million for 20-foot container to take a transportation cost. Imagine the port charges for getting the rice out of the port and transporting it. If you're going to be charging GST on that, of course, GST is a charge that you have to transfer. So who is going to board the tax? It's going to be bought by the ordinary people. And they are already suffering. People are actually suffering. To be honest, again, let me just tell you what the CEO for Mercury International told the Minister of Trade on Tuesday. He said, if this tax, the MAT tax is enacted, because they are working on 2.5% margin, they are dealing with volume. He said, look, Mr. Minister, I will sack 50% of my stuff. I will stop advertising with AYV 98.1 and SLBC. Part of the corporate social responsibility that we've been doing, the freebies, we'll stop it because we will not be able to recover. Here, what that tax does is it penalizes somebody who is actually making a loss because they're looking at your turnover. The previous tax will look at what you've inputted, your investment itself and extra charges. And then if you make profit there, you pay 25%. But here they say volume. So look at people that are actually dealing with air tickets. They don't own the planes. They are working on commission. And sometimes it's $50, $30, $20. And they've got to pay rent, they've got to pay their staff. So if you charge these people on their turnover, you're killing them. Petrol stations, you're killing them. Most of these big wholesalers, these importers, are working on 2.5% margin. Already, it's so expensive to run business in the country. The cost, the exchange rate is so high. If you want $1 million from a bank, you can't get it. You have to go to the streets. The street determine the prices today. The instability of foreign exchange. Interest rate is 26%. If you go to the microcredit, it can go as high as 36%. So if your margin is 2.5% and you take credit, you go and take a loan and you pay 36%, how are you going to be trading? Even the SMEs that form the bulk of the private sector in this country, they used to go to Guinea to buy goods and bring into the country. Now, if you go to Balamuya border, it's dead completely. Because if you take 1 million to Conakry, you end up getting 450 francs. What are you going to buy from Conakry and bring it into the country and sell? You see, again, they've increased, they've actually put 15% on the importation of renewable energy, solar. Light is not a privilege, it's a right, for goodness sake. You're impacting on the ordinary person in Kailaon, in Kenema. They are not connected to the national grid. The only way they can provide light for themselves to enhance their livelihood of children studying is by buying solar lights. Bang, you've put 15% on that. And now let me tell you again, we're spending $250 million every year for the importation of rice into this country. We're eating 3 containers of imported chicken a day, 3 containers imported eggs a day. How ironic can that be? We've got 75% of the land is horrible. We can't actually produce our own food to bring down the price of food, but at what we can export. So now here, by you putting GST on equipment for agricultural use, you're just killing those that have got the intention to come and industrialize. You see, subsistence farmers have not making a single impact for the last 100 years in this country. The only agricultural companies that can make impact into agriculture and address the food insecurity, job and wealth creation in this country are companies that want to industrialize. In my own case, I've just set up the largest Gary factory in the Mano River Union. I've got the largest cassava farm in the Mano River Union. I have industrialized, trying to address food insecurity. Now, 2 months ago, I imported machines. I didn't pay a dime for it. Thank you very much to government. The money that I could have actually spent to pay the GST itself, now I've used it to pay my staff. As I'm sitting here, I've employed 35 people paying taxes and that's it for them. If that is replicated in every region, you could see how we could start addressing the food insecurity in the country. But now and don't forget, we are competing against Asia that have got all the goodies, basically. They don't, you see, they've got concessions. You know, their governments are helping them. Here, you start to import the inputs, you import the machines, you import fertilizer, you import insecticide, even the bags you import almost everything. The only thing which is available in Sierra Leone is the land and the air and water.
Okay.
So how can you compete against those people? Okay. So if you want to actually address the food insecurity and you want to help our people, to be honest, take out this. You see, we're asking the president not to actually sign this particular bill itself. You see, there is no consultation, and there has been a tradition whereby the Ministry of Finance will invite the private sector for their inputs.
Rashid, the concern from NRA is if, to a very large extent, businesses, companies, industries have been enjoying low tax or no tax at all.
Yes.
And at this point in time, government and NRA wants to generate more. If you say, no, don't give us this tax, it is too high, it means more cost on us and it will run our businesses down, how will government generate money at the end of the day?
And the commissioner just said there are loopholes. Close the loopholes for these companies. Close the loopholes. Why do you have to target somebody like me who want to address food insecurity in the country? How will you encourage big businesses, multi-billion businesses to come and start doing agriculture in this country when you want to kill them before they actually come in?
Okay, so now over to you, Ibrahim, sorry. Now, with the loopholes mentioned earlier, with these new provisions, we've seen there's also the annual circulation permit levy, the stamp duty fee and all of it. How will these new provisions come in to close these gaps or loopholes that had existed in tax revenue collections?
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Presenter. Basically, probably before specifically answering your question, a few comments on what my co-guest here has made his contribution, basically. Of course, he has raised a whole lot of issues, which I'm sure may be addressed outside the scope of this Finance Act. He knows that. And probably that might be a discussion for some other audience or some other time that we can look at the bigger issues. But to narrow it down to this Finance Act, basically, as I mentioned earlier, there's been a whole lot of exemptions. And being a tax administrator, we have seen a lot of abuse in the use of these exemptions, on these concessions in the past. And we want to see how we can put a stop or minimize those kind of things. And that is how some of these provisions find themselves in this Finance Act. Basically, maybe going back to the issue of the agricultural sector, we're talking about large-scale agricultural producers. These are big businesses, or trying to be big, basically. And they're also probably within the same rank and file of other sectors or operatives, the manufacturing concerns, the telecoms, and the rest of it, big businesses. And we want to ensure that there is a fair playing ground. Putting, for instance, GST on the equipment probably may not deter the sector in its generality. What it will do probably is I know it will increase the cost a little bit, that's a fact. But again, what are the other provisions in the law to cushion that effect? The law makes provision for that. Firstly, when you buy an asset, with all the charges on the cost of that asset forms the total cost of the asset. The law gives you opportunity to claim capital allowance for those assets as an expenditure. So meaning that you have the opportunity to recover each and every cost of that asset during its useful life in the business. Over time, you spread it over time. You recover it, you account for it as an expense. Allowable deductions, they're there. First year allowance, 5% of the cost of the asset. You know, your GST you've paid, added to the cost. You spread it over, you recover that one as an expenditure. It does not affect you actually. And those rudimentary tools that the subsistence farmers use in finding their daily entomology, basically, so to speak, will not be covered by this act anyways. So we've considered the low-end people and also the high-end. Bravo to him for the kind of steps he has taken to solve food insecurity, basically. We'll support him. Another thing he also has to note is that this Finance Act does not take away any agreement or concession as a separate package which government has signed up to. He knows that if he has a big project he wants to implement, he goes there for a tax waiver package. It's given to him. Even if they're going to be change of law, it never affects him. Agreements signed by Parliament, agreements that are ring-fenced, agreements that Ceylon has entered into with other countries, double taxation agreements, bilateral agreements, which mostly cover. I don't know whether he has benefited from that or he intends to. He can maybe being a tax administrator can also guide him as to how he can access those ones, especially when he wants to get into those kind of bigger kind of arrangements. So in that respect, by extension, you will be protected from those kind of things. Telling us what you want to do, what kind of investments you want to make, what kind of or whatever you want to achieve. You go for a separate package. It's ring-fenced, covered. So you have the opportunity to expand on everything. So we're not killing businesses in any way. Large businesses are there. They have their packages. We don't touch them. We don't change agreements as and when the year progresses. So that's the basic thing. But if we are trying to diversify the economy, the mining sector, for instance, we've not got much as a country. We're looking at the agriculture, which has a whole lot of potential. And for his information, the agricultural sector forms almost 70% of the economic outlook of Sierra Leone. Massive area. Do you know the implication of not taxing that sector? We are losing money massively. In the name of food security, we'll secure the food when they have a package. We'll have an agreement we can pass to protect them, invest in everything. But if we have 70% of the sector not taxed, we are going to have money to create the peace.
Thank you very much,
and the basis
gentlemen.
I
think this is where we'll have to
it's very interesting. We'll continue the discussion. And above all, probably before we close the curtain, there's also provision in the law which provides for Commissioner General's practicing notes, private rulings, explanatory notes. We provide those ones.
Okay.
Personally, collectively, as the case may be.
Okay,
so the
so
dialogue
we hope
continues
to continue
and
the
everybody will find
discussion.
it.
Thank you very much for coming. And we've already run out of time. So this is where we end today's edition of Wake Up Sierra Leone. Our quote for today says, the first lesson of economics is scarcity. There is never enough of anything to fully satisfy all those who want it. The first lesson of politics is to disregard the first lesson of economics. And it comes from Thomas Sowell, an American author, economist, social theorist, and political commentator.
And definitely we shall be also engaging Commissioner and Rashid as soon as this program ends to get a full bulletin of everything needed under this particular issue and concern of the Finance Act for our primetime news tonight. But we say thanks to our sponsors, Local Commercial Bank, for their support to the program. Continue to stay with us AYV throughout the day as we have other exciting programs coming up. We'll meet again tomorrow with more interesting topics here on Wake Up Sierra Leone. We've been your presenters. I am Bokari Matia.
And I am Elizabeth Momodu. Have a lovely day.
Oh yeah, talking point platform, TTPTV. Oh yeah, Unale we pledge, we love and loyalty. To we sweet, sweet mama salute. Now we all come together as one. For tomorrow, now we go make salute.